That's yours.
Yeah, look, I do find the Thames jamming them in there fairly tight. I'll have no option but to support, as we all understand, being a planning authority to a degree, our hands are tied, but I would much prefer a few less development dwellings on a site this size, just to create a little bit more space. But those people that are doing the developments have worked out the best way to get bang for buck, but I'm not necessarily certain it's the best for the long-term future.
Thanks, Councillor. I've got a question for you, Councillor Sinfield, regarding garbage collection within this potential units. What will occur there? Will our contractor be able to get in and get the garbage bins out of this particular subdivision, or will all the bins be taken to the road, or what's occurring?
So, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation includes a permit note number 4, which establishes that we will not accept curbside collection from Dexter Street, and that the applicants, if they do receive a permit, will need to contact council as infrastructure department, and that we will seek advice from our service provider, which is JJ Richards, for our curbside collection, garbage and recycling in Westbury. So we will seek advice from JJ Richards as to whether they believe that their trucks can access the property in a safe manner to collect bins internally within the property, and that the decision will be made by them. And depending on the outcome of their advice, the applicant will either we will be able to facilitate something, or they will need to seek a private collection, which does occur in some other properties of a similar nature.
Thank you, Jam. Councillor Sinfield, you have no.
No, I want to make a comment if I can. Save for hearing something that might change my mind between now and a vote. I can't support this application, whilst it's a new application, not the one that was before us a couple of years ago. I opposed that for very similar reasons. I don't believe that what's effectively a street with 10 dwellings in it, that it's appropriate not to have the width for or have presented us with an option that has pedestrian access separate to the driveway. I just don't believe that whacking a 10km/h sign up is an appropriate mechanism for dealing with what I view as a street. And it goes hand in hand with several other items there, the setback issues that have triggered the performance criteria. I just don't believe they're suitable. If there'd been a reduced number of units, then it might be a different matter, because if you were to reduce the number of units, you spread them out, you make more room for some of the shortcomings as I see it. And for that reason, I won't be able to support the application before us today.
Thank you, Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to the representatives as well that went to the effort of making their concerns known to us. There are a number of things to consider here. I'll certainly have some concerns about the density levels, and also the water issues that have been raised, drainage and overflow, etc. But to Councillor Kelly's point, we are obligated to make a decision on this based on the planning scheme. I will be supporting it. With some reservation, I must admit. I had some concerns about the dwelling density, but it is quite clearly conforming. One dwelling per 396 square metres, exceeding the minimum requirement of 1 per 325. So that is clearly conforming there. Also, the site coverage of roof buildings is 30.5%, as the allowable is 50%, I understand, George. So it clearly is conforming to the planning scheme in that instance. I would like to see less too. However, I don't think we have that latitude based on the planning scheme. Also, I had some considerable concerns about the water, the drainage, the overland flow and all those things. we've had discussions about them. I believe that those matters have been adequately dealt with to the satisfaction that I think I can vote in favour of. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor House. Open up for discussion. Any more discussion, councillors? If there is no, go to the second of the motion, councillor Cameron.
I think councillor House just summed it up really well.
Thank you. Councillor Dudman is the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd agree. I think the report's been provided and the fact that it's been twice checked over by other groups really shores up its legitimacy and our reliance upon it. You know, we talk about the failings of the Tasmanian planning scheme, and I think that this could be seen as a case in point where we don't have the latitude to make decisions as freely as we would like in terms of density and other issues that arise. But the fact of the matter is the density does fit within the planning scheme by quite a wide margin, and that it is largely a compliant application. I always respect Councillor Sinfield's comments because he always gives well-formed reasons for voting either for or against an application. But in this instance, I wouldn't be as confident in him in voting against this because I believe that it sufficiently meets the planning scheme. I do welcome the developer in making a representation stating that he would work with neighbours. I do hope that he stays true to that declaration and he works with the Hanbys should this application be successful. But I will be supporting this one today despite some reservations.
Thank you, councillor. On that basis, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand. That is Cameron, Kelly, Dudman, Smedley, House, Johnston, and against councillor Temple and Sinfield. Motion is passed. Thank you. Moving on to the next planning item. On Franklin Street, just want to make sure we haven't got any speakers before I move into this one. None that we're aware of. I just wanted to make it call again. That's good. Thank you, councillor Cameron is there. Yeah, welcome back, councillor. Motion. Somebody like to move, please. Councillor Dudman, councillor Kelly. Thank you. Councillor Dudman is the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Generally speaking, I am supportive of this development application. I did note the representation made by Mr. Manners with concerns about the hours of operation of the lights. And we did have a discussion earlier about that, and we did check with the applicant about why the 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. time frame was given. Obviously, in reference to that, it was an overcautious allotment of time to make sure that they will always comply with the time frame and that they don't accidentally slip over. I didn't have the direct conversation, but my understanding is, and I'm sure staff can add on if they wish, that generally speaking, the job will be done well before 10:30 at the latest, but won't be carrying on to 11. And I am sufficiently comfortable in the fact that it won't be every night that lights are on from 4 to 11. And furthermore, that we will be making sure that the lights are placed in a way that lowers the impact it has on neighbours, which of course goes to point 2 and 3. Permit their lights, which will ensure that the plans meet the Australian standards to the extent that really there is limited scope to have an issue with this application if it is meeting the standards that are of a national level. So my question is, would you like to add anything else onto that? Or are you happy with my rant?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to my No, okay, it's up. Sorry, 3.
Just, where you were going there.
Yeah.
Tash, was that the public agenda has had 2 additions. That's number 2 and number 3. Perhaps you'd like to talk to those, please.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, in light of some additional information that has come to the attention of council, we have added 2 conditions to the recommendation. One condition states prior to the commencement of works, amended plans must be submitted for approval to the satisfaction of council's town planner and environmental health officer. When approved, the plans will be endorsed and form part of the permit. The plans must be drawn to scale with dimensions and must show the surrounding sensitive receivers are all within the limits of the ASNZ 4282 control of the obtrusive effect of outdoor lighting. So this condition has been recommended to be able to ensure that the amenity is maintained at the adjoining sensitive receivers to be in compliance with that stipulated in that Australian standard to do with the obtrusive effects of outdoor lighting. A follow-up condition is also recommended, which states prior to commencement of use, the following must be submitted to the satisfaction of council's town planner and environmental health officer. Point A, a validation report completed by a suitably qualified person to demonstrate that the external lighting operates in accordance with the ASNZ 4282/2023. So this condition is recommended as a way of verifying that when the lights are constructed, that they are orientated and placed in a manner which is, again, ensuring that the amenity and the values that are being received at the adjoining sensitive receivers are within those stated in the Australian standard. So with those additional conditions, I think that it can offer some surety that the proposed light poles and the level of illumination of the site and potential on adjoining properties can be maintained within the Australian standard. And with that, it's recommended for approval.
Thank you, Tash. Probably should have had that in right at the start, but anyway, there it is, been explained. That's amendments that's only come in pretty much today, so what was published in the agenda. Councillor Kelly, the second on the motion.
Yeah, look, this one's relatively simple from my view. I'm very satisfied that the 11 o'clock is it's just there as an absolute emergency buffer zone. I think it's quite exciting, very straightforward, and I have no issues with it.
Thanks, councillor. Open up for discussion, councillors. Councillor Temple.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My concern relates to the 11 o'clock closing time for the games, for the lighting. I understand the concept that it would normally be concluded by 10, and it's exceptional circumstances that it would be 11. But my concern is years from now, when there's other management operating the bowls club, maybe there are a lot of young people that happy to do things later hours. Having the 11 o'clock there may become the rule rather than the exception. And I would like to find a form of words that can go in somewhere that makes it quite clear that 10 o'clock is the normal and 11 o'clock is just under what's the word? Adverse or unknown circumstances pushes it beyond the 10 o'clock.
Thanks, councillor. General Manager.
Yes, so the proposed hours are the application that we've received from the club. That is their wish, that is their application. So if we were looking to change that, you would have to move an amendment to the motion that's before us today to introduce a change. But I'll pass over to the team leader town planning to provide some context perhaps around the hours. Hopefully you can get some reassurance from that, but in order to try and craft something that you are trying to achieve there, would you have to make an amendment, councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In relation to the hours of operation, as councillor Dubman mentioned previously, the applicant has indicated whilst the proposed lighting is going to enable competitions to be played during evening hours. At the moment, they're restricted to daylight hours. In moving forward, they will be looking to have a competition, which is likely to be the Friday and or Saturday night, only one night, to free up weekends to hopefully have more attendance to those competitions. However, in saying that, the reason why they're proposing the 11 p.m. Closing or shut off of the lights is to provide for contingencies in terms of when the competition has been run. So in that, they are anticipating that they will, the competition will be concluded by 10 o'clock, but they don't want to be bound to 10 o'clock timeframe if the competition gets late, and therefore there be compliance responsibilities in response to that. Our recommendation and our assessment of the hours of operation, I believe, is that it's acceptable. So as the General Manager has indicated, you can apply to move an alternative motion. However, if this development is approved and if there is a impact to amenity arising from the hours of operation, perhaps to do with the lighting impact, there is the possibility for council to investigate that and look to issue an environmental protection notice. Now, environmental protection notice can amend a planning permit, and it could look at amending the hours of operation for this proposal to limit it back if it is demonstrated that there is an impact arising or an environmental nuisance arising from the operation of this permit. So if approved and if it is demonstrated that there is an environmental nuisance as a result of the hours of operation of the lights for this proposal, then there are other alternatives that council consider to manage that site.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillor? Councillor Medley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to commend the club. I'll be supporting the application. I believe the development of the project will allow the club to have more participants, both new and existing players, to be able to play longer and continue at the club. That's particularly important for the older participants. Hopefully we'll see some continuing improved outcomes for health by just remaining active and participating. Having deep involvement at Prospect Bar Park, where there's significant light array there, one of the largest in north of the state. The hours there where there's thousands of participants per week, we never see use of the lights go past 10 o'clock in my experience, which is over 20 years. So I'd find it highly unlikely that would happen in Westbury. So just in conclusion, I'd like to commend the club on their endeavour in securing the funds and undertaking the project, which I think will enhance the sport and rec offering here in Westbury and be a really good thing for the community.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Smedley and everything he said there. But I would like to take the opportunity of thanking the planners. It sort of occurs to me that sometimes the amount of work gets a bit unacknowledged from the planning department. I suspect that there's been a lot of work gone into this, as it does with everything. I continue to be impressed by the thorough approach to matters of this nature. There's a lot of research, a lot of consideration. And I think the members of the community can take comfort as well that these decisions aren't made lightly and they're not made without a whole lot of effort and thought. So just like to note that, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the comments of Councillor Smedley and most of the councillors. I think the Bowls Club is really a much loved facility in our town. It promotes social inclusion. activity, which are all things that help us stay well for longer. So that's really great. I do, however, think the neighbours' concerns about light pollution are very valid. And the new lights will change how it looks and feels around Franklin Street. So I think the fact that they have put in representations to ask about these matters is extremely valid and extremely important. But I'm very comfortable to support this application after the rigorous questioning within our 4 planners, and the fact that 11 o'clock is a contingency plan. And I note on page 161 of the agenda, the applicant says, wouldn't think they'd ever be on this long, referring to 11 o'clock. So it really does come across like it is purely a contingency plan. So because of that, I'm happy to support it. And also I have a deal of comfort with what our planner has said, that should it cause annoyance, there is a mechanism or a pathway that residents can take to have their concerns addressed. So I'll be supporting it.
Thanks, councillor. Councillor Temple.
Mr Mayor, may I move an amendment?
You can, councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And that is in relation to permit conditions 1, following on from where the word daily stop, and then put, however, it is recommended that the lights are normally extinguished by 10 p.m. Stop.
I'll wait till we get this up on the screen so we all can see. But
Game tax.
I just like
Councillor Temple, can you read your sentence again, please?
that.
However, it is recommended that.
That the lights normally are extinguished by 10 p.m.
But this is the amendment, so we're just voting on the amendment.
not yet. And then second.
However, it is recommended that the lights normally are extinguished at 10 p.m.
By 10 p.m.
By 10 p.m. Okay.
Okay, so just to be clear on where we are, so councillor Temple has moved an amendment and council will call for a seconder of councillor Temple's amendment. And if there is one, then we will have debate and seek advice from the planner around the enforcement of a potential change to that condition.
Can we see it on the screen first, please? Gentlemen?
Word document and push it across. Yep. Normally be extinguished by 10 p.m. Yep, just drag across. Yep. Sorry.
Last section. That's for council. Yeah. Right, sports, it's in.
Right, so we have an amendment to the motion put by Apple, second of the motion. Councillor Sinfield has a second of the motion. Councillor Temple as a mover of the motion. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Simply, I realise it's not, that wording is not enforceable, but it is there so that future operators are aware of the community expectation.
Thank you. Councillor Sinfield as a second. Any vote?
I possibly wasn't going to support it, but I did like the words just uttered that it isn't enforceable, but it does provide some level of indication. I was trying to think, you know, some alternative might have been that no new game was commenced after 10 p.m. Allow for that scenario, assuming that a game wasn't going to take you beyond 11 o'clock anyway, but that you know, it's going to be my pet phrase today. It does provide some level of comfort, those words, without, as is likely the case, not enforceable in any real way.
Yeah, General Manager, it's something to comment.
Yes, look, just my only comment, Mayor, being that we are operating as a planning authority and we're talking about introducing additional wording to the planning condition 1, which, you know, will need a level of enforceability. So I guess I'll refer to the team lead town for a comment perhaps on the proposed amendment before that would be debated.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess in relation to how the amendment to the condition is worded, I feel it is contradictory in terms of it's allowing the operation to 11 p.m, but yet in a condition we are recommending that the lights be extinguished by 10 p.m. My experience in relation to the structure of conditions is that they need to be explicit in terms of what we're asking here, and that we shouldn't have any recommendations in a condition. So my recommendation to council would be that that be included as a note rather than to that condition. So you could have refer to note 1 and then have note 1. It is recommended that the lights normally be extinguished by 10 p.m, because I don't think that enable to enforce them to turn them off at 10 p.m. is possible where we have the condition saying they can operate to 11 p.m. Oh, yeah. Alternatively, you could amend that condition to be 10 p.m, 10:30 p.m, 10:15, if you want to restrict the 11 p.m. timeframe.
Thank you. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Temple, for putting this forward. I can see what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that. However, especially based on the advice, I don't think it provides the level of comfort for me than it does for Councillor Sinfield. And importantly, it doesn't really do anything other than slightly contradicts what's been written above. We have in the documents that were being provided got a level of commitment that the 11 p.m. Timeframe is only for, you know, the that catch-all in case it goes across. They make sure that they're always compliant and don't find themselves in a situation where they have to cut off the lights halfway through a game in the rare occasion that that happens. So on that basis, I wouldn't support what's there, and I don't support changing the time back to say 10 or 10:30 or any other time. I'm willing to accept what has been provided to us. Also, I'm willing to accept that because, as we've stated before, this is approved subject to the lighting meeting the Australian standards, and that if there is further nuisance that is felt by the neighbours and those living around the area, we can head into the EPN discussion and revisit this, should there be a situation where we find that the 11 o'clock timeline is actually insufficient. But my feeling is that we won't be having that discussion because it seems very rare that we will be going to 11 p.m. In reference to your comments on, you know, the possibility of it going to 11 p.m, Councillor Temple, I have a great respect for the members of the bowls club, but they don't strike me as people who would stay up all night playing bowls. And in terms of the potential of youth involvement, I think I'm still qualified to speak on behalf of the youth of the Meander Valley when I say that bowls until midnight does not sound like the most favourable thing for me to be doing on a Saturday night. I'm willing to try it once, but I doubt I'll be trying it a second time. So on that basis, I thank you for bringing the amendment. I won't be supporting.
Thanks, Councillor Dudman. Councillor Smedley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just noted that the Bowls Club's been in existence since 1976, so that's a good 48 years. They've served the community here in Westbury, so I'm prepared to just take them on their word that they'll work with the community going forward as well.
Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, look, I won't be supporting. I mean, just think it's overcomplicating things. I was happy with what was put before us. I think Councillor Smedley summed it up quite well, and I think it's just sort of tampering with words and it means nothing.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors, comments before I go back to the second on the motion, Councillor Sinfield?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I won't be supporting this. I think the addition of the altered motion that's now before us and the fact that we can go to the EPN, etc., is probably enough to get the job done in a reasonable manner. And I appreciate the comments of the other councillors on this in that. So yes, if it had stayed as the original motion, then I mightn't be as happy. But the changes made and the scrutiny that will be on it, I think, is enough to persuade me that what we've now got before us is the right way to go.
Thank you. Councillor Temple has moved the motion.
I'd just like to say that, you know, I'd be happy if that became a note to the permit condition 1, as suggested as a possibility by the planner. I think it's still important that it's there. I've got great confidence in the Bowls Club and their management of today, but this is something that we're still running in 30 or 50 years. The world will be a changed world. And unless we have something like that in there, no one will be aware of what the thoughts were of today.
Thanks, councillor. You can move an alternative motion after this one regarding the note that you may want in the recommendation, but on that basis, I'll put the motion.
So, Mayor, just to be clear, so we are only voting for the proposed amendment from Councillor Temple and Councillor Sinfield. If it is successful, this wording is added into the motion. If it's unsuccessful, then we revert back to the original motion, which was moved by Councillor Tubman and Councillor Kelly.
Correct. Thank you. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Councillor Temple is for. Against? That's everyone else, I'm sorry. So motion is lost.
Well, for the exercise, I'll move a second amendment, and that is that it forms a note to point 1 of the permit conditions.
Just wait for the scribe takers to catch up.
No, it's just there, so.
Councillor Temple has foreshadowed an amendment
Uh,
to put that as a note.
So would councillor Temple like to move an amendment or foreshadow an alternative motion? Sorry.
No, move an amendment.
Move a further amendment, okay?
But based on the advice of the planner.
Be it councillor Temple, your your amendment is the same, but it being
But the placement of it is as a note.
Rather than a condition.
Yes. We'll test that. If I have a second then.
Well, need to look further afield.
Oh dear.
Goes. At the discussion.
I'm sure the mayor would be delighted to second that for me.
Good, then I'd sit down as the chair, but anyway.
It's always the easiest applications that take the longest time.
Like last night, Mick, you won't have to worry about it.
Sorry.
I say if it's like last night, you don't have to worry about it. It just goes off all by itself.
Oh, it's still out.
Yes.
Okay, councillor Temple, does the wording on screen reflect your intent
Yes.
there? So an additional note be included, so the entire recommendation being the same with the introduction of an additional note 7 as on the screen. So councillor Temple has moved me. You'll look for this.
Do I have a second note for that? Councillor House. Can I go to the planners and ask their opinion of additional number 7, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the question could be asked, do you want it to, after condition 1, to say refer to note 7, or whether you just have it as a standalone condition, note? That would be my only question. I do not see any concerns by having it as a note.
I might just add to that a note on a permit isn't going to provide any certainty that this is going to occur. We've got more certainty using the provisions of MCA and an EPN if there is a nuisance that arises from this.
Good. Yes, councillor Temple.
Simply, Mr Mayor, all this does is leave a trail for future generations to find should they wish to.
Thank you.
It's not something that will be of any benefit within the foreseeable future. But it's something out there for 30 or 50 years from now.
Thank you. Councillor House, second on the motion.
Not much to add, Mr Mayor. I just think it's a reasonable compromise. I'm in favour of adding that as a note.
Good. Councillor Donovan.
Thank you again, councillor Temple, for what you're trying to do. I do respect that. Again, I don't think that it A, does anything, and B, I still think it convolutes the situation, because we're telling them it has to be up by 11, but I would like it to be up by 10.
And that's how we feel.
Yeah, no, and I respect that. I just don't feel that it really does anything or adds to the development application. So if it has the support of the council, I'm ambivalent, but I'm reluctant to vote in support of it.
That's simple.
Yeah, I'm warming to it. I probably agree with the planners that it would be a good idea if permit note 1 referenced permit note 7.
Condition 1.
Condition 1, I should say. But other than that, I'm happy to support it, I think.
Okay, any other comments, councillors? No. So that was your wrap up as a second, councillor Sinfield? Oh, sorry, back to councillor. Sorry, I've got, no, Chair, councillor House.
I'm done, thank you.
Councillor Temple, happy to put the motion?
Well, again, Mr Mayor, it is just to leave a trail there for the future, so people are aware of what the initial intent was. I believe if it's just left baldly at 11 o'clock, someone sometime in the future will think 11 o'clock is fine.
Thank you. Okay, put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. There you go, I'll go. Johnston, Sinfield, Temple, House, against. Kelly, Dudman, Smedley, Loader. It's a tie. The motion is.
Amendment is lost.
Amendment is lost.
Yep.
Why?
Dudman, Kelly, Smedley and who, sorry?
You got close at that time, that's it.
Do I go for a third?
No, please, Mr Chairman.
Kelly.
Assassination may be attempted, may take place.
Right, back to the original motion, way back about 40 minutes ago.
Hey, can I move a procedural motion that we take to a vote?
Love you
I
to.
think that's what it was.
Thank you. We just wait till we get caught up and we're. Okay, procedural motion has been moved by councillor Dudman that the motion be, the vote be taken. Just make sure you're right.
Motions.
Sorry,
Seconded.
seconded it. Thank you. Move second.
You need to.
I don't think I need a second, but that's.
You've just got to-
been moved. I accept it.
Skip 'em.
Gonna put the vote. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand.
On the procedural motion or on the?
On the motion itself, on the motion itself. I think I can accept the procedural motion without having to go to a vote, councillor. Johnson, Kelly, Dudman, Smedley, Sinfield, Loader, House, all against. Councillor Temple.
I'd just like it recorded that I voted against, Mr Mayor, because I don't believe that the motion reflects the true intention of the council.
Thank you, councillor Temple.
Okay.
I think so. I think I can accept.
Null and void.
Good thing we haven't got anything important to talk about. eh?
I think we do have to vote.
I think you do.
Planning Authority, item 12.3, 170 King Street. Somebody like to move, we have no speakers for this, just checking, somebody, do we need councillor Cameron's probably gone home?
No,
Councillor Smedley.
hospital had a grey hairs when I last seen her.
Right, we'll wait for it to get seated.
We've lost, one of the council.
We're totally tapped. Right, somebody, so we've got no speakers to this one, councillor Smedley's.
No, so there were no representatives, listed to speak, Mayor.
Councillor Smedley has stepped out.
Yeah,
Somebody like to move, somebody like to second this one, please. Councillor Loader, thank you. You did that before, Anne-Marie. Seconder, please. Councillor Dudman, thank you. Away we go, Councillor Loader.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support this motion. I want to note that it is for a subdivision and not for actual buildings to go on the land. The block sizes are nice and large. I also want to note that the White House is rather an iconic building in Westbury, and it really does need to be looked after. And it is looking really awesome. The current owners keep the facade looking very, very nice and neat. Again, I do want to note that it's just a subdivision. I've spent a lot of time looking at this because I do really love the Village Green. The Village Green attracts visitors to Westbury and indeed the whole Meander Valley. It's a place where we have our St Patrick's Festival and other gatherings. It's where you can go and get fish and chips on Wednesday night and sit down and really enjoy this beautiful place that people hundreds of years ago set aside and planted beautiful trees. So I don't like using that word taking comfort. We're all taking a lot of comfort today in this meeting. But I have taken a lot of comfort from the heritage assessment that basically says you can't put a whole heap of units on lot 2, which faces the green. So the fact that there can only be a single dwelling on that block, I think is really important. And up until I read that, I was really quite concerned about it, but that really did clinch it for me. The fact that the Heritage Council has come and said these conditions must be in place, which is on page 290 and 291 of the agenda. And because of that, I'm happy to support this application.
Thank you. Sid, do you have a query there before?
I believe that he did need to pass the procedural motion before we pass the thing according to regulation 20 or 21, I guess. 20 regulation 4 says if a chairperson of a meeting accepts a procedural motion, no discussion on the procedural motion is to be allowed, and the procedural motion is to be put to the vote. If the chairperson of the meeting, blah, blah, the rest doesn't matter, but that would appear to me that following motions, going back to subclause 1, the sub-regulation 1, the following motions or the negatives are procedural motions, but the motion be now put. So that is procedural motion, I would have thought. So probably not going to make any difference at the end of the day, but.
No, you've raised it.
I sort of think it's a 2-step.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You raised it. I was wrong. We will go through this procedure through this item in front of us. So we have a mover and a second, and we'll come back to that previous item to clarify. Thank you. Councillor Dudman is the second on the motion.
My apologies to speed things up to double the time it's going to take, but that's okay. In reference to the item before us, I am also happy to support this one, namely because, and my thanks to the applicant in what they've done here, the block sizes are reasonable. I think the covenants that have been put on from the heritage are reasonable as well, and it protects the fauna, but importantly, as Councillor Lerda says, limits the dwellings on lot 2 to 1, which is obviously facing the village green. It is important to note that I am aware that some who have made representations against this application are concerned about potential future developments on the sites, should this be approved. Whilst that isn't relevant for the matter at hand, I think it is a good thing to note that condition that will be on lot 2 really limits the scope of what will be put on that lot. And generally speaking, I think there's an understanding that keeping to the character of the village green is important for people who live in that vicinity and around that area. And I know that's happened with a recent development at this site as well. So I'm more than happy to support this development application. I've lived here for 26, almost 27 years, and I've always wondered when the site of the White House was going to be cut off, because it was always a bit of a vacant block with not much happening to it. So here we are. More than happy to support.
Good, thank you. Open up for discussion, councillors. Councillor Temple.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask the letter from the Heritage, or the decision from the Heritage Council, in reference to a mulberry tree. What does that mean in practical terms with a fence? Is the mulberry tree close to a proposed fence, or yes, I just have a greater understanding of what the implications of that point 2 is, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that tree is shown on the plan of subdivision, and it appears to be that I guess what you'd say that the trunk of it is within lot 3.
Yes.
So, I understand that any sort of fencing work or work in that area would need to comply with Heritage's requirements. So I guess that would include the footings for any fence as well.
I may continue, Mr. Mayor. Sure. In reference to when we get to advice, they're talking about a crossover. In the whole process of future development, when would a crossover be likely to be installed? And would the people that are installing the crossover or be aware of this recommendation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the driveway crossovers will be installed prior to sealing of final plan. That is the creation of the new titles. The notice of heritage decision in full will be attached to the planning permit and is referred to in the conditions of the planning permit. And we have also included a note at the relevant, a referral to a note at the relevant condition about the new driveway crossings, that they consult with Heritage Tasmania in proposing their works.
That's it.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Mayor, it's probably going to put our Director of Works and Infrastructure on the spot. Given what they've said here, and given that we do work in the road corridor, fence to fence, how will we note what Heritage Tasmania has actually recommended here in terms of future treatments in that street adjacent to lot 3? In terms of, we've had representation earlier today in terms of William Street and changes we made there, which may or may not have been adjacent to heritage listed properties, at least in some part. How do we dovetail what's recommended here with our ongoing works and development programs in general, I guess, as well as with particular reference to this one? If that question made sense.
It's a curly one, Rodney, because they're thinking about it.
I think, Councillor Sinfield, we're referring directly to the advice from Heritage Tasmania on page 290.
291.
Yeah, and 291, same letter, which really only relates to the application referral that was made to Heritage. Okay, so I guess we're only considering it for this assessment before us, and so I guess your question is probably outside of the scope of the planning assessment. But if the director have a comment that they'd like to make around council's future work in the road reserve around footpaths and driveways in that vicinity, they can, but I guess it's not reflective. The referral from Heritage Tas was specifically for the subdivision applications.
But if I may add, the stipulation there, or the recommendation to the proponent, in terms of the subdivision, is that they put a certain type of crossover in. How do we ensure that we, in our processes, as a council, moving forward, dovetail into that request, that we don't next week turn up and put in a curb and gutter in front of where, should we approve the subdivision, that we've just gone ahead and done something else anyway. So it's placing a level of incumbency upon the proponent. Concomitant requirement, if any, is on us to not only ensure the proponents sort of adhering to the substance of what's required, but that we, as the relevant road authority, do the same.
Very Mr. Mayor. I was trying to find the reference actually. I was concentrating on something else to be Councillor Simply, so I wasn't really on the item.
All right.
But I suppose in terms of our duties and organisation, I mean, we're certainly aware of the copies of that, heritage registration and the precincts that they are within. So therefore, any work that we do, like we would call that we've proposed work at the Village Green in recent times with some development there, that we obviously need to be sympathetic to the fact of the heritage values of the green and the surrounding area. So I suppose in terms of any work that we do, we consult heritage, the same to make sure that, it's commensurate with what their expectation, the community expectation would be for those areas. That answer your question, or?
Oh, I think so, yes. So it probably means the swale's going to stay there for a while.
Well, I mean, I'm going into the detail, but certainly there's bluestone on the frontage of King Street in the brain, which is obviously got some heritage value in relation to the facade and the frontage of that property. So certainly in terms of contemporary infrastructure and the balance and all those things are things that we will consult with the really expert and make sure that we will come with the infrastructure changes that's agreed by all parties.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, councillors? Assembled.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My vote, I suppose, relies heavily on the recommendations of the Heritage Council. I'm concerned with lot 3, that with lot 2, they've stipulated it must be one dwelling only, and the dwelling must be sympathetic, but there's no such references made to lot 3, which is certainly within the curtilage of lot 1. I'm just concerned as to is there any protection to stop lot 3 becoming 8 dwellings or 8 units or something along those lines?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So lot 3, when it's created, will inherit a Tasmanian heritage listing as well.
Yeah.
And for as long as it retains that listing, any sort of use or development applications for that property will be referred to Tasmanian Heritage. So they will have input essentially into what development is allowed on that lot, as long as it remains heritage listed.
Okay. Well, any other questions, Councillor Cameron?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
No, I don't really have a question. I just had a comment to make. Obviously, the White House is of significant importance to Westbury and the heritage that we need to celebrate. So to see that heritage report, particularly about lot 2, was really quite important for me in making my decision in supporting this application.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor again?
Just a comment. For me, yes, it's only about subdivision at this stage. They are large lots that are being created. They're not right down at the bottom end. And yes, for me, the level of comfort in the heritage report makes a difference. A couple of their words would have been nice if they were different. And so I'll support it on the basis that there is a level of comfort in that document.
We note that in the minutes. We don't very often get that out of Councillor Sinfield when he's in debate. But thank you. Okay. Any other discussion, Councillor? If not, back to Councillor Dutton, the second of the motion. No. Councillor Loader is the mover of the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. It is this report from the Heritage Council that has made me, and I'm going to raise comfort to confident. I am confident that because of this document, that area will be developed in a sensitive way. I do want to thank the people that put in objections, who are watching what goes on and are prepared to put pen to paper. And it's not an easy thing to do that. It's not an easy thing to come to a council meeting, whether you're speaking or just sitting in the gallery. So I thank them. But as we've all said, we are looking at a subdivision. We're not looking at new dwellings, and the Heritage Council has given us a level of confidence that this is going to be developed sensitively in the future.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hands. That is unanimous. Very good. Thank you, councillors. Those in public gallery, if you wish to leave now before we continue with the rest of the meeting, please do so. We head now out of planning items and into corporate services. Oh, my apologies. We don't head out of that because we're going to go backwards. Sorry. You can still leave if you so wish, but we are got to go back to planning authority. Yeah, bye, Steph. We do need a step. So we had a procedural motion put from councillor Dudman. I took it that way. I didn't need a second. I do need a second. I think councillor Smedley might have put his hand up at one stage. I think he did.
I did.
Sorry, I caught councillor Smedley.
Yeah, well, I think so.
So procedural motion, we've got to move in a second.
It's just a two-step process.
Clarify, just clarify, Mayor, so there's two ways of looking at. It was. Item.
Excuse me,
PA 2569 Franklin Street, so there are two ways that it could be viewed. The procedural motion put forward by councillor Dudman was lost by way of no seconder, and therefore the vote that occurred, all councillors were aware of the vote that was being made and that the vote is valid, or we could revisit decision if councillors are unclear of what had occurred and then reconsider the procedural motion that was put by councillor Dudman.
Okay, so you've just heard from the general manager.
Yes, no, I don't consider myself one to lose votes often, so I'm going to go down that path, but I'll leave it to you.
I can go back and redo the vote. I don't think the outcome's going to change that much.
No, go back and redo it.
So the procedural motion was moved by councillor Dudman and councillor Smedley. Caught my eye. Sorry, councillor Loader, if you did do that. So that's the mover and the seconder. Are we happy to put the motion?
You've got to accept it. You've got to accept it.
I've accepted. I accept that procedural motion. Put the motion. All those in favour of the procedural motion say aye. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I then go on to the actual motion itself, which was moved by councillor Dudman, seconded by councillor Kelly.
So,
yeah, I'm just waiting for you.
So thanks, Mayor. Just to confirm that the item was as moved, inclusive of the additional permit note from councillor Temple.
Yes, it was. That's my understanding. Thank you. As a note.
Sorry, did it?
It was a tied vote.
Sorry, it was tied vote.
That means it's lost.
Yes.
So we're back to the original.
Original motion you now want to put.
The original motion.
That's what I said.
As altered.
Printed in the.
As it's printed in the agenda.
No.
No.
I'm sorry, as it's printed with the amendments.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, as with points 2 and 3. That's the way.
Okay. So with the three conditions that were moved.
Yeah.
As moved by councillor Dudman and seconded by councillor Kelly.
Are we all clear? I'm just checking that. All clear. Right. Put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand. That is unanimous. Thank you.
The filibuster didn't work.
Honest questions.
Want a break? We're going to break. We suspend the meeting. I'll see you next month.
Yeah, but you don't have to say.